The Grand Conclave had stood for 17,000 cycles, a monument to diplomacy among the stars. Within its crystalline halls, 243 species had negotiated, traded, and maintained the fragile peace that held the galaxy together. Wars were fought with words here, not weapons, or so they believed. Jiggy stood at the observation deck of the human delegation ship, watching the conclave's massive structure shrink against the void. Her reflection in the reinforced glass showed tired eyes, eyes that had seen too much politicking, too many broken promises. "You really think this will work?" Alex asked, stepping beside her. The young ambassador had been her protege for 3 years now, bright and idealistic when he'd started. The conclave had tempered that idealism into something sharper, more dangerous. "It has to," Jiggy replied. "They've pushed too far this time." Behind them, the data scrolled across holoprojectors. 57 human colony worlds blockaded, trade routes strangled, humanitarian supplies confiscated under pretense of security concerns. The Varix Concordat, the Thelian Empire, and a dozen other powers had coordinated their actions with bureaucratic precision. They'd boxed humanity in, testing how far they could push the newcomers to galactic politics. They had miscalculated. The emergency session of the conclave convened 6 hours after humanity's delegation departed. Ambassador Krelix of the Varix Concordat stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing with rehearsed indignation. "This walkout is an insult to 17,000 cycles of diplomatic tradition," his translator barked. "The humans throw a tantrum like children when faced with legitimate security procedures." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. The Thelians, beings of pure thought housed in crystalline matrices, pulsed with satisfied colors. The Borrigan hive chittered approval through their communal speakers. Only a few remained silent. The elder Zendari observer, Matriarch Shla, regarded the proceedings with her ancient eyes. She had watched species rise and fall. Something about the human departure troubled her in ways she couldn't articulate. "They will return," Krelix declared. "They have no choice. Humanity needs the conclave. They need our trade, our protection, our legitimacy. They are weak, alone, desperate. Give them 3 cycles. They will crawl back, ready to accept whatever terms we." The emergency alert cut through his speech. Reports flooded in simultaneously from 17 different sectors. Human vessels, not their diplomatic ships but something else, had appeared at the blockade points. They weren't attacking. They were simply there, silent, waiting. "What are they doing?" someone demanded. The answer came within the hour. Alex monitored the tactical display aboard the UHNS Resolution. The dreadnought hung in space 3 light minutes from the conclave, along with 47 of her sister ships. They formed a loose perimeter, weapons cold, shields at minimum. Not a battle formation, a statement. "Admiral Chen reports all blockade groups have received the same message," he told Jiggy. "No response yet." The message had been simple, delivered to every species maintaining the illegal blockades. "You have 12 hours to withdraw your forces from human space. This is not a negotiation." "They still don't understand," Jiggy said quietly. She pulled up the holographic display showing troop movements across a dozen worlds. "They think this is another bluff, another political maneuver." "Then they really don't know us, do they?" Jiggy allowed herself a thin smile. "No, they don't." For 17,000 cycles, the conclave had operated on a fundamental assumption, that species who achieved spacefaring capability had evolved beyond primitive violence. Wars still happened, of course, but they were limited, ritualized affairs, territorial disputes settled with minimal casualties, economic competitions with agreed-upon rules. Humanity had seemed to fit this mold. They'd arrived at the conclave with gifts, with trade agreements, with smiles and handshakes, and a willingness to participate in the great cosmic dance of diplomacy. They'd accepted minor slights, endured economic manipulations, swallowed their pride when insulted. The other species had mistaken patience for weakness. 12 hours, Krelix scoffed in the Emergency Council, an arbitrary deadline from a species barely 2 centuries into space travel. Their warships are primitive compared to our fleet. The humans have perhaps 200 vessels capable of deep space combat. We have thousands. "Then why are you nervous?" Matriarch Shla asked softly. Krelix's skin flushed an angry purple. "I am not." "Your pheromones betray you," she continued, "as do the accelerated thought patterns of our Thelian colleagues, as does the increased chittering frequency of the Borrigan. We are all afraid, though none of us will admit why." "There is nothing to fear from humans," a Thelian representative pulsed. They are negotiators, philosophers, artists. They write poetry about peace. They have served on our medical stations, taught our children, shared their culture freely. Yes, SHL agreed. And does it not strike you as odd that a species so gentle keeps such detailed war colleges, that their entertainment is filled with tales of conflict, that every human child is taught the history of their wars in exhaustive detail? Ancient history, Krelix dismissed, before they reached the stars. 200 cycles ago, SHL corrected. A blink, an instant. We have had peace for 17,000 cycles. They have had peace for 200. Do you really not see the difference? Do you not understand what we've awakened? The chamber fell silent. The 12-hour deadline passed. The blockade forces did not withdraw. Alex watched the tactical display as 48 human dreadnoughts went to combat status simultaneously. No speeches, no declarations, no ceremony. Humanity simply went to war. The first blockade shattered in 47 minutes. The Varix Concordat had positioned 16 heavy cruisers in a defensive formation around the colony world of New Providence, confident in their numerical and technological advantage. The human fleet arrived in 3 elements, and what followed wasn't a battle, it was a dissection. Human warships moved with a precision that seemed impossible. They didn't target ships, they targeted specific systems with surgical accuracy. Weapons disabled, engines crippled, life support left intact. Within an hour, 16 Varix cruisers drifted helplessly, their crews alive but utterly defeated. The pattern repeated across 17 sectors. How, Krelix demanded, watching the tactical feeds in horror. Our ships are superior, our weapons more advanced. But they've never used them in real war, Jiggy said quietly, though he couldn't hear her. She stood in the Resolution's command center, watching the same feeds. You've had 17,000 cycles of peace. We've had 200 cycles of learning from 10,000 years of war. Alex pulled up a historical file one of thousands humanity had compiled. The Siege of Sarajevo, the Battle of Stalingrad, Gallipoli, the Somme, Vietnam, the Mars Rebellion. He looked at Jiggy. We studied every mistake, every tactical innovation, every strategic doctrine. We kept it all, remembered it all, learned from it all, just in case we ever needed it again. They thought they were dealing with philosophers and poets, Jiggy said. They forgot that the same species that writes sonnets about peace also wrote Sun Tzu and Clausewitz, that we built the Hague Conventions because we'd done things so terrible we needed rules to stop ourselves. The conclave reconvened in chaos. Reports flooded in, not just of defeated blockade forces, but of human fleets appearing at strategic jump points throughout the sector. Not attacking, just present. A reminder that humanity had been mapping galactic infrastructure for decades, quietly knotting every choke point, every supply route, every strategic weakness. They're not trying to conquer, Matriarch SHL observed. Look at their fleet positions. They could cut off half the conclave's trade with minimal effort, but they haven't. They're making a point. What point? Krelix demanded, his confidence shattered. That they could, that they've always been able to, that they chose not to until we forced their hand. A communication request came through, not to the conclave, but broadcast on all frequencies. Jigga's face appeared on every screen, her expression calm but unyielding. To the member species of the Grand Conclave, she began. Humanity did not come to the stars seeking war. We came hoping we'd evolved beyond it. We sat at your table in good faith. We accepted your rules, your customs, your limitations on our growth. We did this not from weakness, but from hope, hope that the galaxy was better than we'd been. She paused, letting the words sink in. You mistook our restraint for inability, our patience for cowardice, our hope for naivety, so we are walking away from your table. We are reminding you of something you've forgotten in 17,000 cycles of comfortable peace. Her eyes hardened. Fear isn't born from violence. Fear is born from the knowledge that violence is possible, controlled waiting. We have shown you that we remember how to fight. More importantly, we've shown you that we know when to stop. Every ship you sent against us still has its crew alive. Every blockade we broke was accomplished with minimal casualties. We did this not because we couldn't do worse, but because we chose not to. The transmission shifted, showing tactical data, comprehensive maps of conclave infrastructure, complete with vulnerability assessments. Information that had taken humanity decades to compile. This is what we know, Jiggy continued. This is what we could do, and this is what we are choosing not to do. We are returning to our space. We will defend our borders. We will trade with those who approach in good faith, but we are done begging for acceptance at a table where we're treated as children. She leaned forward slightly. We are not your enemies unless you make us so. We are not your conquerors unless you give us no choice. We are simply a species who remembers what you've forgotten, that peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence. Peace is the choice not to use it. The transmission ended. Alex found Jiggy in the observation deck again, watching the stars. "They're withdrawing," he reported. "All blockades lifted. The Conclave has sent 14 separate requests for renewed diplomatic contact." "On our terms this time," Jiggy said. "Yes, on our terms." She was quiet for a long moment. "Do you think they understand now?" Alex considered the question. "They understand that we can fight. Whether they understand why we choose not to, that will take time." "Then we teach them," Jiggy said, "the same way we taught ourselves, that the greatest strength isn't in the weapons you build, it's in the ones you choose not to use." Outside, the human fleet began its journey home. Behind them, the Grand Conclave faced a new reality. Humanity had walked away from the table, and for the first time in 17,000 cycles, the cosmos remembered what fear felt like. Not fear of destruction, but fear of what power looked like when it was wielded with purpose, precision, and the terrible wisdom that came from knowing exactly how much damage one could do and choosing restraint instead. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.